Pat and Alana, thank you guys for being here. Everyone, this is a very special episode. I don't normally have guests on my podcast or on the YouTube channel because I just want to hit you right with the information. But when there are special guests willing to discuss their situation and where they're at in life, I'm always going to entertain that. So what I want to start with is letting you guys all know what prompted this. So you can see here, this was the question that prompted where we are today. And this comes from Pat, who says, "Hey, Ari, my wife and I, we're in a unique position. We've watched the videos. I want to see if you're interested in this case study. So I'm 50. I've got 2.3 million in assets. I happily manage them myself. I'm realizing an early retirement might be an option for me. 1.8 is in retirement and the rest in other assets with no debt. My wife is 25 with very few assets, but she's a military officer with very strong program management experience. High income potential for her on the civilian side when she transitions out next year. She's financially savvy and has been contributing to savings and an IRA. We'd both like to work less and enjoy life together, but the hard part is predicting how much money she would need to save, let's just say next 5 years, in order for me to retire early and her transition into a less stressful job, whether it be part-time or remote. Happy to go on camera. And you can see here, Pat says, I'm currently an automotive YouTuber since 2019. So if any of you guys are interested in this, we're going to put this link into the description as well. Go check this out. This Pat is awesome. So love that you're doing this. So guys, thank you for being here. I want to start by asking, when you're thinking about retirement planning at all, what is the biggest thing that's making you not pull the plug tomorrow? Is it like, hey, are we going to run out of money? Is it, hey, we don't know how to approach the taxes? Is it the age gap? Like, what is it top of mind?
Yep. If we wanted to retire tomorrow, our main concern would be, is there going to be enough money that not only I can live with, but she can also live with because of the age gap? And so I don't want to work, until I'm really old and have her continue to work if she doesn't need to. So it's important to us to determine where's the sweet spot. Where can we transition out of our normal jobs and into, well, pretty much a little bit of different things that we want to get into, whether it's smaller jobs or some entrepreneurship, but something that's been less secure than our current jobs.
Beautifully articulated. Alana, anything you want to add on to that?
I guess you could say that one of my concerns with all this planning is, with the age gap, I would say statistically, I'll probably live longer. So I'm looking to investigate how much I would need to save in order to make sure that I can still support myself when I'm alone.
Well said. Yeah, if Pat goes out in the Lamborghini and ends up doing some circles in there, let's hope that age get let's just hope Pat's safe. So, I will be the first person to tell someone, look, I'm going to need you to work 10 more years if you want to spend what you actually want the rest of your life. And I'll be the next person to say, look, why the heck are you working? Like, you told me you didn't want to die with $10 million. So when there are no children in the picture and there's no significant desire to leave $10 million behind, that changes a lot of planning. Too many people come to me and they go, yeah, but my neighbor, they're not retiring early. How could I? I go, you might want to spend way less than them. They might have 6 kids. There's just so many different planning points. And the big factor that I can already tell you before we hop right into the real planning is, if there's something you guys like doing and it brings in an income and doesn't take away from stuff that, you really want to do, well, that changes planning a lot. Now, some people get confused when I say that, and I'll tell a client, I'm so happy you brought in 30,000 this year. And they're like, look, are you just saying that to be nice? And like, cause you say you're the meanest advisor. Are you trying to like offset that with this? I go, no, I'm over the moon. And they're like, I just don't get why. I used to make 200,000. Now I make 30, and you're like ecstatic. So like, what are you, crazy? I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not the 30 I care about. It's 30 less that has to come from somewhere else, which lets that keep growing. So that portfolio, as that compounds, that's the real power. So they're like, oh, so bringing in like 30 could be like bringing in 60 or 70. I go, yes, it depends on your plan. But where you guys are at in life, you're going, look, I just want that sweet spot. And if you said, I don't want to work ever again today, which I know it's not what you're saying, I go, no, like, we're going to run out of money. But if you're like, no, we've dreamt big and we want to make sure we're enjoying life, we just don't want to like be working too long unnecessarily, Well, you guys have the pieces to make it happen. And we're going to talk more about that. But one of the things I see a lot is people going, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do in retirement. The good news, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fact that you've got a YouTube channel and Alana, you're already like, look, what if in 5 years I truly started to cut back? Talk to me a little bit about what you guys are planning and thinking about in terms of retirement.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we would really love to do is move from Maryland to the Rocky Mountains. So we were looking at Montana. It's one of our favorite places to go to. So if we moved, we would be in a less expensive area than we are right now. And we'd be able to enjoy the outdoors more. And we would also be able to play around with stuff. I personally want to do some remote work, whether it's, some watch trading or get into some day trading or things like that. Things that really get me enthused in the morning and be able to just put a few hours in.
Yeah.
That might be my thing. But outside of that, I enjoy spending time working on the cars and helping other people out, doing some coaching as well. So that's where I'm coming from. If Alana wants to speak.
Yeah, Alana, I want to hear from you, but real quick, I just can't help myself. So, Pat, you're not worried about being bored. Is that safe to say?
I am not going to be bored.
Okay, not going to be bored. Alana, what about you?
So I would definitely be able to, maybe take up some part-time program management work if it's definitely needed, especially remotely. I also would love to explore some of these other sectors that I've always been interested in. You can see my books behind me.
Yeah.
So, a librarian job wouldn't be, that would be nice to experience and see what that's really like. I also have a passion for wine. So, having already some certifications and having some background in that, I could possibly see what, some of these other areas wine wise look like and help out with tasting rooms, all that kind of fun stuff. So I've got some things I'd like to explore.
You guys are freaking cool. I like you guys. Now let's assume, yeah, one of the things definitely deserve a high five. Let's assume one of the words you said there, Alana, was needed. If I needed to do, what if you didn't like, hey, you're not allowed to work? Would you be like, look, I'm not going to have purpose, or like, I'm going to need to do something? Or are you like, no, truly, if I did not bring any other income in, and which is not what I'm saying, but if you did not need to, would you be like, maybe I wouldn't do, the librarian? Or you're like, no, it sounds fun.
At least on the program management side, if you
Yeah.
told me I never had to work there ever again,
Yeah.
I would be happy with that.
Okay.
But some of these other sectors, right, like you said, if there's something that we like doing and it can bring in income, then I'd be more than willing to. Um, if I volunteer for it instead, that's just fine. I would do it one way or another.
Yeah. Okay. Well said. Now, any health things I need to be aware of at all? Oftentimes, clients will talk to me. Yeah, parents' health's not the best, and this, and we can rely on that to some extent. But other times, it's look, I don't know if I have 5 years or 10 years, and I hear that more often than you can imagine in the work I'm doing. Any health things I need to be aware of?
Yeah, I have a simple one, and then you could talk about your complicated one.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on an aorta thing that's come up with a small aneurysm. So, there may be an open heart surgery in the future if that continues to grow. But outside of that, I've been fit as a fiddle up until I just found out about this not too long ago.
Not fun to talk about. I do not take it lightly. And the truth is we just don't know how long any of us have. And this is why I love this type of planning and why I get so emotional and excited is I don't want you to be 65 going, hey, why didn't I start some of this earlier? So totally get that. And I hope Alana already promised me you're living till 100. So Alana, feel free to whatever extent you'd like, share just health things that I need to be aware of.
Yeah, I have two major hip surgeries, some replacements that might need to happen. I would say statistically more likely than not. So making sure that that's covered, but that also brings in the possibility of possibly having some disability along with that issue that's kind of already developed itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, the medical side recovering, but we might also have a little cushion with that possible disability.
Yeah, real life stuff, and appreciate you sharing it. I'd always talk about the value of good questions. In the recent story I shared on this, some of you already know this, but when I'm a very transparent guy, and I went to the doctor, this was months ago. I said, "Hey doc, that sounded great. I think you think that sounded great. Don't know what you just said. So like try again." And when I was at a recent doctor's office, different than you, Alana, but they were telling me I'm going to need a hip procedure of some sort. And my brother said, "Hey, what if we lived right next door?" Because I flew to Philly for this procedure. And they said, "You know, if you live right next door, I don't want to make you fly out again." We're like, "I know, just pretend we lived right here." They go, "We might try one more injection, or we might try one more thing." The reason I bring this up is I'm hearing about health things constantly in my line of work. And we always want to make sure that we have the financial resources to ask that question. If my brother and I weren't financially sound, I would have said, "You know what? I'm probably going to need the surgery anyway. So let's just do it. That way, in case I get this injection, it doesn't work, I fly back to California, I fly back to Philadelphia. Oh God, I just wasted $5,000. Well, I might end up needing this surgery, but because I am financially not even sound, I just understand where I'm at with my money. I can make that call, and it can really, good luck quantifying your health on some spreadsheet. So appreciate you guys sharing all of that. I want to start hopping into the plan. So many of you guys know this, but if you don't, the software we're going to be using is inside of the academy. So you're going to see right here, we are literally inside of the academy where Pat and Alana have built their plan. Now, this academy, many of you guys ask questions on this. It is, you can see here, this software that I'm playing around with, it is powerful. There's a lot to this. It's the same software I use for my clients. You guys can play around with all of this. This is built because a lot of people like Pat are like, "Look, I'm managing my own money. I don't need an advisor on an ongoing basis. And I don't really believe in hiring an advisor until someone traditionally has about $2 million. That's where I believe someone can add value." So if you're going, "Look, this is awesome, I want access to the same tool," you can go get it right now. That's why I did it. So you guys are awesome. You put in your assets in here, you put in your income, you put in everything like here. I want to go through a lot of this, but there's a few things in light of time I'm going to gloss over. But what I'm really proud of is you guys already put in here, look, what if healthcare costs $6,000 a year for each of us? Like, who knows exactly? What if we spend $8,000 a month? What might long-term care be? What if we relocate, as you mentioned? How often are we going to buy new cars? What about travel? What about other expenses, making sure our cat has everything they need? Like, I love this level of detail. You guys have gone in here and gone to the next level. So I'm sharing this screen because everyone doesn't need to do this, but I like that you did. So what they did is they said, "Here's our income today. I've got some self-employment income. I have my salary today. There's going to be some non-taxable income. Here's what we're expecting for next year." Lots of awesome stuff. So you guys crushed it. You're letting me know how much you're saving. What I want to start with is, when anyone's coming to me going, "Hey, what's the sweet spot? What am I on track for?" Well, selfishly, I want to have a long conversation about goals and dreaming, but in light of time, I'm going to assume you guys did a good job, and I can already tell you did because I see a lot of stuff in here. So right off the bat, this is what their plan is saying. So quite simply, their plan is saying, "Look, here's a couple who 50 and 25, their assets, they've got about, let's call it 2 million of actual retirement assets. There's other stuff, CDs, cash, etc. And they're wondering, what am I on track for?" And off first glance, it looks kind of wild. It's like, "Hey, we've got 2 million bucks and we're on track for like 16 million. Is that even real?" And I'll start with clients and show it's real, but you make one little tweak here, and let's assume markets don't do well and we have a conservative allocation, and we just click enter. Well, in live time, the plan is going to update. So real quick, I didn't do anything other than say, what if your investments do awful? Now, are they going to do awful? No, I'm just being dramatic here. This is assuming you're getting like 4% growth with 3% inflation. So it's just beyond unrealistic. So what I often like to do is keep it on the moderate tab. Not perfect. The truth is, you guys are probably going to do a whole lot better than that. But by keeping it on moderate, what this is saying is, if we get 8% growth with 3% inflation, well, they're going to be you guys are going to be fine until 96, and who knows how long any of us are going to live. But I know, Pat, you're thinking, "Well, what about Alana? Like, what if she lives way longer? Like, is she going to be okay?" And I'll show people what's in our control. Well, if we're leaving it on moderate, just for example's sake, and you guys go, you know what, Ari, really 7,000 a month would allow us to do everything we want to do. I know we said 8,000, but it's really 7,000. Well, right off the bat, all I did was make one little tweak, and now they're on track for $2.7 million when Alana would be what, 92 or I don't know, 20 years. So 87. So Alana would be 87. Could we live longer than that? Of course. But these are the power. This is the power of these assumptions and good planning. So I like that you guys went in here and you're like, yep, we've got a plan. The reality is you're investing in one of our models where you're an 80% or 90% or something like that. It's going to tweak the plan in a major way. So we always want to make sure we're being intelligent here, because you make one little tweak and it looks like you're running out of money, and another tweak and it's like we have 20 million bucks. Make sense so far here, guys?
Yes.
Cool. So the first thing I like to do, because I'm naturally just a conservative guy, I can tell also looking at your investments and what you've shared, let's assume we're just going to, in a general growth portfolio, we could be more conservative and being moderate. But to me, I don't want to be unnecessarily unrealistic. I'll joke with people and say there's 3 types of insurance. And I made this up. There's underinsured. I don't want you to be that. There's overinsured. That's what I want. And there's unnecessarily insured. I don't need you paying for something if we're not getting value for it. So whenever I'm looking at investments and we're going to have a conversation about volatility and all these fun things, well, what's in our control? Well, if we're getting after, inflation adjusted returns in the range of, let's just call it 5 to 6%, I just think that's realistic. So right off the bat, it'll look like, guys, you're good, but you're not. And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm just saying real life here. This graph looks good, but it doesn't tell the story. The graph that I live on is the withdrawal rate graph, because the traditional planning of the 4% rule or some of these things, hey, that's good if we retire at 65 and die at 95, but there's more to this than that. And there's an age gap. And how do we think through this? And what I want to always make sure is we're conservative. So you don't, Alana, go, I'm out of the workforce. And you're like, oh, why didn't I work 2 more years? Because that would have really put me in a safe spot the rest of my life. So generally, I like when someone traditionally retires with like a 40-year time horizon to be starting a withdrawal rate in the 4.5% range. So all of this is me saying is, guys, not a problem. I'm just saying, hey, Pat, right now, based on if you worked 5 more years, even that's where me being a conservative planner, I'm going, it's still not in my super rosy world. Now, at the same time, when you're starting in the withdrawal rate of 5% or so, and then all of a sudden it's decreasing, I know a lot of you watching this are going, hey, what's going on with the decrease here? And why does it jump up again? Well, odds are Pat and Alana are going to have the time of their life in their early retirement. So they're probably going to spend more the first 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then it starts to come down. So at the same time, although I might say this withdrawal rate is a little high, I actually think your graph is going the wrong direction in a good way, where now all of a sudden, guys, what if you're in your 70s and 80s and your withdrawal rate's like 2-3%? Like that's way too low. That's like you didn't spend enough. So it's like, well, Ari, how on earth do we think through this then? Well, what I like to do is go, what's in our control first and foremost? Yeah, weddings and cars and expenses, and to some extent this will shift. But one of the things you said that really struck a chord with me is, what if we did something? Who knows to what degree, call it, trading, or you're working as a librarian, you name it. Well, if we want to just be ultra conservative with this, which is how I like to do it, let's go add in one feature here. And I'm just going to call this other income. This could be a combination of trading and being a librarian. It could be whatever you want. But let's assume you guys do what you're doing just for the next 5 years. Okay. So you're going to keep doing this. And then Pat, when you're 55, so Alana, you'll be 30. What's going to happen? I'm going to ask you guys to do something for 10 years. I don't care what it is. You guys get to pick, and we're going to keep this on 0. The reason for that is in the plan. Well, we now have this figure here. So why do I do this? Well, we could look on this screen and let's assume you guys go, you tell me, let's assume Alana, I don't want you sacrificing lifestyle, but let's assume you're a librarian or you're teaching other people about wine. You're really enjoying life. How much might you bring in a single year if you had to just guess?
Maybe like 40K.
Yeah. 40 is great with me. Pat, let's assume you're like, Ari, YouTube channel's taken off. Turns out I love this. I'm doing some trading stuff on this. I'm doing all these things. Super conservative. What might you say you'd be bringing in?
Super conservative is hard because I know the potential. Let's just say 50,000.
Let's just say 50. So for you guys, if I put 90,000 in here, I'm just going to show you why this is important because I have to pick and choose here. Well, why did this just make a huge difference? It's not the 90,000. It's that your portfolio is growing way more at this time. And now, Pat, what's going to happen is you will pass away one day, even though Alana said you're not allowed till 100. And at that point, we're going to have to make sure that, Alana, you don't run the risk of running out. So a lot of the conversations I do with clients when there's an age gap, the biggest gap I've seen is a 22-year age gap from 60 to 38. And they retired and they're like, all right, I get it. And the numbers say this, but I have an advisor at Merrill Lynch, but I just don't feel it. Like I know they tell me I'm okay, but I don't believe it. And I go, I know why you don't believe it, because this graph looks good, but what if like stuff happens? And I go, stuff is going to happen. And so if you're magically thinking you just get to stop working forever and no matter what, you don't want to do any tax strategy. I told that couple, I am not comfortable telling you to retire early. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm going to have like $10 million. I go, if we're not comfortable going, well, markets are down. Maybe we spend a little bit less. Wait a second. Markets are up. Maybe we go take that extra trip. And I'll tell clients, if you don't fly first class, I'm going to be pissed. Then there's other times where I'm like, guys, trust me, this is not the year to take the extra trip. And here's why. So the withdrawal strategy, this is the number one indicator for your success, which is why I go back to withdrawal page. And now, if you guys did this, I didn't tweak your investments and optimize them. We haven't even talked tax strategy, which is what is going to be the biggest value add transparently. But if you just worked longer, Alana, you're stopping work in 5 years and you're truly doing what you want to do. And I'm going to tell you what if you do it sooner. So trust me, because I know you're thinking it. If you're like, this looks good, what if I stopped earlier? Trust me. Well, right off the bat, guys, your withdrawal rate right here, when someone's below 3%, I mean, historically, through all the studies, it's proven, I mean, that's income the rest of your life. Whether you're 25 or 35, under 3% is so sustainable. And if we just look at it plainly, let's assume markets grow by 10%. Okay, well, you take 3% of that, awesome. But if markets don't perform well, that might be a year you just spend a little less and you're a little more intentional. So as long as you guys are open to being what I call a retirement boxer, where you're like, yep, I'm going to be dynamic here. Maybe you're not going to have to go back to work, Alana or Pat. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you guys said, well, what if we brought in 90,000 a year now? Because that's what I like to do with clients. What if we start this literally next year and you do this for the next 15 years? Well, the graph's going to look really good, but it's double counting. It's saying, well, now you're bringing in this magic income while you're still working. So we need to tweak this back. Pat, you stop working today. Alana, you stop working today. Now we refresh the plan. Well, that has a big impact, but guys, I mean, this is still like worth having a conversation about. Like, yeah, we're in the 3-4% range. There's a few spikes, which is, hey, we're buying new cars and stuff is happening. The reality is, based off of this, if you are my client and open to being dynamic, the fact that your graph is going down, if you are working and doing all of the right things, I mean, I don't say this lightly, like, I don't know why you would work today, especially if this is something that you're like, no, we're probably going to do something. If you weren't, no, big change. And some of my clients are like, look, I want to never work ever again. Well, this is not sustainable. So the cool thing about this and what I encourage you guys to strongly think about legitimately is, okay, let's assume you're bringing 80,000 or 90,000 or whatever it is. How long might you do that? Because if you're like, Alana, if you're like, look, I'm probably going to do something, I just don't know what, I might do it for like 30 years. Well, if you love being a librarian and you're bringing in 30,000 a year and you have purpose and fulfillment, if I'm you, I'd stop working right now. Pat, if you're like, look, I'm going to do something, I just don't know exactly what, but there's potential with the YouTube channel or trading or who knows what, as long as you're open to being dynamic, excuse me, you guys are in a really strong spot to legitimately stop the traditional retirement. So I'm going to shut up. because these bring lots of thoughts, and I just discussed a ton, which I recognize. What are you guys thinking as I'm saying this right now?
You first.
No, you
No, me
first.
first. Okay. Well, I've been in and out of the thought process of actually quitting my day job and starting to do these other things. And it's been a thought for probably the past 2 years. And what has been the hesitation is, am I going to have the security of the health insurance on the back end, which, I've done the research about the marketplaces and I'm able to do it. It's not like that is a concern anymore. So it's not what's holding me back. But I also want to make sure she doesn't run out of money. And I also want to make sure that I get a chance to enjoy what I've saved up over the years, because I do want to share it, but I also want to make sure that I don't hold myself back from enjoying retirement, just to make sure Alana's also in retirement with
Well
me.
said. Well said. Yeah. No, that is huge. That last point there. And I don't take this lightly. Like if I'm you, and just based on this correspondence, if you're my client, which technically you're not, I would encourage you to stop working. And truly, I know I would want to ask more questions about the flexibility. But if you're like, look, I'm going to do something, worst case scenario, here's what I'm working with. I am open to spending $7,500 instead of $8,000 a month, because I'd rather spend a little bit less than work where I'm doing now. I'd want to have more of those conversations. I would encourage you to legitimately think about stopping the current work and doing these other things, which might yield way more financial benefit as well. So same page there. Alana, is it weird, like from your perspective? I told someone a few weeks ago they were 37, and I'm like, look, you should stop working. They had health stuff, they had other things. They're like, yeah, I get that, but it's just, look, I'm 37. Like my neighbor's 60 and he's working, so it just feels too weird. Like I get it, but like, what are you thinking as you're hearing this?
Yeah, coming from a traditional, like a traditional financial household,
Yeah.
right? As having parents that are in their late 60s and still working, like it's definitely, been a mindset shift towards, I might actually be able to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once my contract is over, I can do as I please. I don't need these big corporate jobs in order to survive later, right?
Yep.
Um, it's definitely nice to hear for sure. I just need to finish out my contract first, and
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
be good
And
to go.
yeah, and let's talk about a few other things. So the first is that if you guys, I've seen it happen, not a ton, but some people come to me and they're like this. They're like, I already did that conversion thing, Ari. I saw it on a YouTube video and I did it. I'm like, I wish you did nothing. They're like, why? I'm like, well, you're retiring so early. You just lost $12 million. They're like, what? I go, yeah. So the point here is, when I'm saying you have a green light, this is assuming you're doing all of the right things along the way. So I'm showing you, just on a tax planning perspective, what's the value of doing some of the planning. When you retire earlier, that lets us move money from a traditional account to a Roth account. And as that money grows, it's tax-free. The purpose of a Roth conversion is to essentially do what's called tax arbitrage, but the value of it gets so much more powerful when there's an age gap. Because if something happens to you, Pat, it's like, oh, wow, now Alana wouldn't have to be paying taxes on this. Okay, so that's different. So the tax planning side of this is really important when there's a significant age gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll tell a client, look, by you continuing to work, you're actually making my job harder, because you're adding to a tax deferred issue that you already have. And you're just adding more to this 401k. And you think you're doing the right thing because you were told as a kid to max out your 401k. But now you're actually defeating the purpose. And yes, it adds more money, but is it worth the squeeze? Now, if I make one little tweak here, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's a $1 million decision I should not do. So there's a lot of nuance in this that we won't spend all of our time on today. But do you guys have any specific, like, hey, I need to leave 30 million to this charity, or I need to leave 500, or is it just like, look, we want to enjoy our retirement, travel and spend. We just don't want to run out.
Exactly. We just want to enjoy our retirement and not run out.
Okay. you guys are in a really powerful spot. Now, let me be clear. If you guys had $1 million fewer dollars, everything we're discussing right now wouldn't be a rosy conversation. I'd be like, guys, you're probably working legitimately 10 to 15 more years with what you're doing. And then you're going to work probably 5 to 10 more years in part-time capacity, because the risk is your money doesn't have enough time to grow. But for all of you guys watching this right now, and this is the power of good retirement planning, there's lots of things I'll show my clients. One of them, which I'm going to pull up for all of you guys right now, we've all heard about compound interest and all of this stuff, and it's not rocket science, but it's different when you actually see it. And there's something called the rule of 72. How long is your money going to take for it to double? So what you get to do is you get to take 72 and divide that by 10. Now, I know it's blurry on your screen, but let's assume Pat and Alana get 10% rate of return. Well, their money's going to double every 7.2 years. So let's take the opposite and be conservative. And let's assume you get 7.2% return, which is what I'm showing. Your money's going to double every 10 years. 2 mil, 4 mil, 8 mil, 16. Well, that's happening really quickly. And I don't want you to be, and this is going to sound really weird, I don't want you mad at me when you're 75 or 80 going, why didn't you tell me I could have spent more when I was in a good spot to do so? And most advisors will be conservative and say, I'd argue unnecessarily conservative, and go, look, guys, do you know how many things could happen in the next 50, 60 years? Just work till you're 60 at a minimum and be careful. It's like, hey, that's great. But this is like, if things happen and Schwab goes under or Fidelity, it's, hey, we've got bigger problems in the world and we're open to being dynamic. You guys are in what I really call that recreational employment. So whether you know it or not, right now, you're working because you want to. And I'm going to bring on, I have someone I'm going to do a case study with, and they already said, hey, Ari, I can't wait to do this. You're going to tell me I can retire next year. I'm going to tell them they have to work 8 more years or I couldn't sleep at night. So I will do the opposite, which is why not everyone loves me in the advisor world. I'm just very transparent. So you make some of these tweaks here, guys, it's a big difference. So whenever I'm doing planning on the tax side or the estate side or the insurance side, which is a big part of what we're bringing up right now, not just healthcare, but disability planning, long-term care, all of these different things. Well, if I'm you, what I would do right now, and I'm just going to run this with you guys just for fun real quick. Have you guys even gone through any healthcare estimates or anything like that before?
No.
No. I just like to do this. Just humor me for a second. So, what's your zip code if you're comfortable sharing?
21701.
701. Cool. Awesome. So this is what you're going to see right here. So let me tell you my little dopey joke before I show you this. So this is a health insurance marketplace calculator. Too many people come to me and they're like, oh my God, what is healthcare? $20 million? I'm not going to retire. And I'm like, no, it could be significant or it could be very minimal, but we want to understand truly, are we not retiring early because of healthcare? And some people are like, look, I've never not had traditional healthcare. So it's weird. And I don't know what that's going to cost. That's normal. But the important thing to know here is this company Move Health, where if I'm you guys, I'd reach out to them tomorrow and I'll send you guys all the info on how to do that. I think you can legitimately just like, I'll show it right here, but Move Health, I don't work for Move Health. Don't care if you use them or don't use them, but they are an independent healthcare coverage agency. So what does that mean? Let me tell you. So I worked at a company called Northwestern Mutual. Now, when I was at Northwestern Mutual, they're like a big life insurance company. I'm a very transparent guy. So there's about 200 other interns there. And I just said, look, Northwestern, I'm sure I missed it or something. Why is it when I sell this instead of this, I get paid more? Shouldn't it just be like what the client needs? Like, what am I missing here? And they said, don't you worry. Wait till you see your bonus. And I said, don't you worry. I quit. And no one else walked out behind me. I'm like, okay, so this industry is kind of interesting. And my parents, on top of being burned by multiple advisors, like I know this industry well. So the point here is, I don't care who you use, whether it's Cobra or Marketplace or short-term health insurance. I have clients that are like, look, health insurance, like I need the right plan. That's like going to make or break my retirement. Let's assume you guys are bringing in $100,000 a year. This could be next year. This could be in 10 years. And there's no traditional healthcare. It's both of you that we're planning for, 2 adults, and I'm just showing you a sample, 50 and 25. Now, Move Health, they're experts on the healthcare side. I'm an expert on the tax and healthcare management side. So what this is saying, quite simply, is If you said we want a silver plan, which let me be clear, you probably don't want a silver plan. Okay. I'm just being hypothetical here. A silver plan, a gold plan, you name it. What this is saying quite simply is your cost would be $700 a month. So you're like, okay, so $700 a month, we'd be getting a premium tax credit for about $4,000 a year. Well, that's significant because most people write this off immediately and they're like, what is it, $12 trillion? It's like, no, it's significant and we're going to plan for it. So whenever I'm doing planning for clients, let me show you guys this because this is something I'd want you to update in your plan is we go to the healthcare plan. Well, one of the big factors that was in your plan here, we had planned on $6,000 a year for each of you guys for really your healthcare expenses. Once Medicare comes on, and we've got some time for that, that'll get diminished. But Alana, you might need this for a long, long time. So let's assume you're paying, $8,400 a year total. Well, if that's the case, or it's more than that, that changes the plan. Yeah, there's fewer dollars. So sometimes what looks to be like we're on track, we have to go back to the drawing board and go, well, what does my healthcare needs look like? Well, what about my disability needs? What about potential long-term care and things like this? So what I do is I start with what would you love to do? Dreaming. You did that for me. We then go to, okay, great. What does the real graph say? What would our withdrawal rate look like? You can see here, we're still in a sustainable way. Sometimes it's a little higher than I would like. Don't love when it goes north of 6%. Now there are some times where I'll tell a client you can retire and they've got like an 8% withdrawal rate. And they're like, hey, you're like crazy. Like that's too much. I go, no, it's okay for this 1 year. Next year, it's got to be below this amount. So based off of where you guys are at and your plan, you have all the pieces to make it happen. I wanted to give you a true kind of overview without going through every single thing here. Any specific questions that you're like, look, I just got to ask you guys this?
How about you?
No, I think we've gone over everything that I had questions about.
Has this been overwhelming, helpful? Does it confirm what you're thinking? Are you like, I kind of thought this, but it's helpful seeing the logic? Like, what are you thinking right now?
So joining the academy and being able to go through the process, and we took the last month and we plugged in every possible number as accurately as we could, being able to see for us what it looked like, definitely gave us a good feeling. But having you look at it and be able to give us your feedback candidly is just hugely important, because being able to hear you guys are okay. You may have to make some adjustments. We're aware of that. We understand we need to make some financial adjustments, maybe as things pop up, as markets change. Completely aware of it. But actually hearing it from you, it makes a big difference, to be honest with you. And we're both number crunchers. We both love finances, and would probably be one of the best clients because we're both in spreadsheets all the time. So
awesome.
Yeah,
well,
we love this.
I love hearing that. And you probably knew this was coming, what I'm going to tell you right now. But yeah, you guys are on the qualified rich cash poor. And so what oftentimes the numbers say, if we have $2 million, it's you do, but the part-time income, call it part-time. I would call it recreational employment income because you're still enjoying doing it. It's not taking away from other life activities. That is what's making the magic happen here. So for all of you guys watching, listening right now as well, if there's something you really enjoy, guys, Pat and Alana, they would not be able to make this happen if they didn't have other hobbies and activities. Like I can tell Alana, when I don't know if you noticed, or Pat, if you did, but when you were talking about wine, you leaned forward and I was like, oh, I can feel it. There's a desire to do something in that space. And because of that, like you would have no idea how many people I talk to that are like, look, I worked the same job for 30 years. Now I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. And they're just tired of it. So their plan's going to be worse than you. And you're going to retire 20 years earlier than them. So the value of continuing to work, as long as you enjoy it, that should not be underestimated. And without a tool like this, it's really hard to be like, okay, I get it, because I'm an Excel guy. And the reason I use this software is it's dynamic and it will talk to everything else in the plan. So guys, thank you for being here. Anything else that you want people to be aware of? So once again, the YouTube channel, Pat, I'm putting this right here in case anyone wants to check that out. Anything you want to discuss on this or things that you like to talk about here?
Well, just that, I decided to create that channel because people were afraid to do an oil change on a BMW i8. And I decided that I'm in the garage. I may as well set up a camera and start talking about it. And it blew up into people asking more and more questions. And it turned into now I got to get a wireless mic and better lighting. It turned into a production, and it's been a lot of fun because for me, I'm contributing to that experience for a lot of people that either want that vehicle, want to learn about it, and some of the pitfalls of owning it, or some people saying this is my dream car and I just want to listen, and I'm not going to have this, but I want to listen to what it's like to be close to this. So sharing my experience with other people with the channel is hugely important to me, and I love meeting people. I love helping them. And I think I resonated with you when I watched your videos and seeing how much you wanted to help people in their early retirement goals as well. So really appreciate what you have to offer.
Amazing. I love that. Alana, do you get any time when Pat's in the garage, or what does your day look like when you're not working and when Pat's in the garage?
Yeah, when I'm not working, I'm dancing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Any
And
style?
cooking. You love
Yeah,
to cook. She
yeah.
loves to cook, which is great.
Cooking.
Keeps me on a very good diet.
I make way too many dishes than Pat can usually clean.
Do you
So
do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that you're just doing it for the joy?
no, just do it for the joy. Toss like having a YouTube channel with Pat's experience has been tossed around, right? Currently my job, takes a whole lot of brain power.
Yeah.
So I tend to want to come home and just do things, right? And not have to worry about recording and lighting and all that fun stuff. But, if I can get a little more brain power to myself, that is a distinct possibility.
You never know. And it's funny, I asked you, I was like, do you have a channel? And some of my clients like, hey, all right, relax. Not everyone has a channel. Okay. So I by no means am recommending it, but what I will say, and I'll tell this to a lot of my clients, most of my clients are pretty cool people and they've done cool things. That's why they have what they have. And that's why they're in a position to retire early. So by them being open to sharing this online, just like you're doing, Pat, like the possibilities are endless. So if you're like, look, I really love doing it. Like it sounds a little odd sometimes, but like, if you're like, look, here's what I love doing, and you just start posting about it, like you'd be shocked. It takes a few comments. Like I'll show this because I'm just very transparent. This is my podcast graph. I've shown this publicly many times, so I don't mind sharing it. This is, if you need any inspiration, and I don't know if you do, but when I'm always bringing up my planning stuff, I've been doing my podcast a while, so this takes a second to load. So I'll let you know when this comes up, but it's just, I have one couple I'm thinking of right now, and they started posting like they make baby clothes, and is because they just didn't find any good clothes out there. And they're like, look, we were kind of doing this for fun. And now they're like retired, truly doing what they love. So anytime, if you're like, yeah, I had this thought or anything, like I always encourage my clients. I'm like, yeah, my job is to go deep in the investing and the tax and the withdrawal and all of that, because that's what I like, but don't discount it. So I'm going to show you this real quick just because it's fun. This is just not the YouTube. YouTube has millions, but this is the podcast graph. So you can see I started in December of 2020. The first year, it's really not doing a lot. I mean, look, let's call it really 2 years, pretty much a year to 2 years. I'm talking to the wall. I mean, primarily that's literally what's happened. My girlfriend, now fiance, is like,
Yes,
look,
congratulations.
thank you guys. Is like, look, why are you talking to the wall every week? I'm like, well, I just, look, 3 people cared. So like that helped. And then it's growing. So I want to make sure, even if it's growing, like you get to ask yourself, okay, like I'm sure, Pat, you do the same. I don't want to make videos. Like I'm very honest about best new credit card of 2024. That's not the type of stuff I like to do. I'd rather go deeper into taxes or withdrawal and stuff like that. So guys, this has been a pleasure. Thank you again for being here. We'll stay on the line just so that I can talk about a few other things offline with you guys. But seriously, thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you, Ari.
You're welcome.